Hey, hello. Welcome to the Utah Puck Report. I'm your host and your hockey friend and hockey enthusiast. It's me, Jay Stevens. And tonight we're doing a panel. We're going to talk about everything. Big game coming up for Utah Hockey Club as first place Minnesota comes into town. And they had a great weekend. So let's talk about some of that stuff. We're also going to talk about in fact, I think we'll start off with talking about some chaos at the Maverick Center over the weekend. My guest today, Mason Mannek. Mason, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me again. I'm excited.
Former Grizzly, another former Grizzly, Evan Stoflet. Evan,
Thanks for having me, Jay. It's been too long.
it has been a minute. You're kind of you were like the co-host for a long time, and then you vanished for a while.
Yeah, back stronger than ever.
And then from the Utah Outliers, Bill McCloud, longtime friend of mine. And Bill, you do a lot of stuff radio-wise and podcast-wise, and you're a play-by-play guy. You're kind of like me, man. You just do a little bit of everything, right?
Just a little bit of everything. I'm a professional Grizzlies fan. How about that? So never played for the Grizzlies, so I feel a little out of place right now. But thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, we're glad to have you. I think you bring a lot to the table as far as doing some hockey analysis, and we've got so much to talk about. That's why I thought maybe we'd get a whole panel going. I'm just gonna start out. At what point did you guys start hearing about some crazy stuff going on at the Maverick Center this weekend?
I was at a Zach Bryan concert and I got out of it and I went on Instagram and I was showing my dad. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, Kansas City comes into town. They call me on Thursday and say, "Hey, our goalie just got called up to Seattle. We need a guy to just come sit the bench." And that's what an e-bug is, and it's different. I have to explain this to people about the difference between e-bugging in the ECHL as opposed to e-bugging in the NHL. When you're an e-bug in the NHL, which they have one at every arena, so you're the house goalie. You show up and you put your gear down, and then you just go up in the stands. They already have two goalies, and the e-bug's just there in case something happens on either team, and then you just go dress as the third guy. In the East Coast League, if you're e-bugging, that means you're there, man. You're the other goalie. You skate the morning skate, you skate whatever practices there are, and you warm up, and then you sit on the bench. And if something happens to the starter, you get put in. Kansas City's on a tear. They did really well last year. They're first place in the ECHL this year. And they're one of the rare teams this year in the East Coast League that has had nothing done with their roster until this week when one of their goalies got pulled up. And then they made a trade. So they had two changes of their roster where when you look at the Grizzlies roster, their top six guys are up in the Colorado. They've got guys that are hurt. So the guys that went to training camp, that's about a 50% difference in what's playing right now. So the Grizzlies are in scramble mode because of pull-ups and injuries, and Kansas City's just coasting with guys that have been there all season and that are good guys. First game was I think it was a 6-1 loss for the Grizzlies. And then Saturday night, it was a bit of a blowout right from the start. And then things got a little testy in the third period. I'm just going to show it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This is it's just kind of fun. This is what happens. So a little bit of craziness happens in front of the Grizzlies crease. A Grizzly player takes a run at a Kansas City player. Kansas City player responds, and then the Grizzly goalie gets involved. And when that happens, if a goalie gets involved, it's the other goalie's job to at least come to center ice and say, "Hey, mellow out or we're going." And here they go.
Yeah, not much of a fight.
No. Kansas City goalie comes in about 6'4", 6'5", and funny thing about I think that's Schill that took the beat down there. I think he got called up today by Colorado too. So good for him. Not much of a fight. You're right. But then that brings up the crazy part for me, because then they're like, "Hey Jay, you're going in." They hand me my gear. Evan, you were there the first time.
Yeah.
And you and I have known each other for a long time. And you're like, "Jay's not a very good goalie. Like it's fun to have him around for I can tell some jokes or hand out some Jersey Mike's cards or whatever I'm good for in the locker room." But what was going through your head the first time I got put in when you were playing? In a 2-2 game, by the way.
Kind of just like you said, like, oh boy, like this could get out of hand pretty quick. But at the same time, I didn't want to tell you that. So I was like, it's a game. Just pretend, I don't know what Trelage and Rebels and I don't know what other names the teams we had, the Pinkies All Stars or whatever it was. And it's just a game. Just try and stop the puck and we'll clear out everything else and just see what happens. And sure enough, you did just that. All-time save too, the cross crease one. So I figure it's probably old hat for you at that point now.
Well, and that's what I was telling the coaching staff for Kansas City, because we were talking about here's the other part of that. Wes, the assistant coach for Kansas City, played for Rapid City and was the guy that made the pass that I stopped on that 2-on-1. And he's like, I almost lost my job that day, getting shut out by a freaking e-bug, and not to mention I was 45 at the time or whatever. And that's, so anyway, yeah, I got put in, and then the league put a stop to it, or somebody put a stop to it, where they didn't want me in, and they were just saying, hey, if the other goalie can go, typically we only want to use an e-bug if it's a injury or an illness. And so my 15 minutes of my rekindle, as we call it in the fire department, of fame just was only like 2 seconds, and then I was pulled back out. The other guy came back in with stitches in his hand. He had to get his knuckles stitched up from landing that punch.
Did you get any shots?
I don't think the clock even started. I don't think the clock even started. They stopped it pretty quick. Honestly, I was more nervous this time. Last time I went in, I'm like, I have nothing to lose. Like, no, I could give up 6 goals and people would be like, hey, made 1 save. That's pretty good for an old guy. But this time I just been chilling on the bench, just talking crap with the assistant coach and the equipment manager, and like I got on the ice, I'm like, oh, my skates are a little looser than normal. That's what happens when you sit here for 3 hours. And so I went out, and I'm like, I don't remember how to do my warm up right. Like, do I go left to right, right to left? Yeah, so it's kind of weird, but yeah, it was. I was kind of nervous, and I kept looking down on the ice because I was waiting for it to start, and then I wanted it to stop so I could get a different water, because I wanted my own water bottle. And then they just came back and said, hey, you're out. Oh, well, that was, I don't know. That was good. And
one thing I've always noticed when e-bugs go in, and it's never boring to watch how much harder the team plays when an e-bug goes in. You got guys laying down for pucks. You've got guys like charging, offensemen. Oh, yeah. And it's fun to watch. It adds another element to the game when an e-bug goes in, and I've always enjoyed that. You get a little excited, one, for the 50-year-old dude that's going to go play, but the other thing too is just the energy it brings to the team defending that goaltender. So it's fun to watch that too.
They came to me and told me I won't see. I had a 6-goal lead, and I had a couple guys come back, and they're like, "We're going to play our guts out for you, man. You're not going to see 6 shots."
Yeah, Mason, your plus minus can turn real quick in a situation like that. No one wants that game note to pop up.
Yeah, because that doesn't matter in this. It doesn't say -6 asterisk e-bug.
Yeah,
it just says Evan allowed 6.
Mm-hmm. Here we go again.
Evan, I remember, man. You and John. What's his? I forgot his name. Who was on the team that year? Not. What was John's last name? The other. Anyway. You guys were absolutely murdering people in front of me. Like, I would give up a rebound and just watch some guy get murdered in front of me to make sure
protect that plus minus.
I didn't realize you
more defensive defenseman. That plus minus was a contract earner for me.
Well, that's right. That's right. Mason, have you ever had a game like that where the e-bug got put in?
Oh yeah, I got a good story for you. When we were in Rapid City, when I was playing for the Grizzlies, it was like we had like a COVID outbreak all of a sudden, and so we traded. I can't remember who it was at the time. I think it might have been Garrett Metcalf, or he got called up or something. So we had to trade and bring in a goalie from the SPHL. And he showed up. He was my roommate in Rapid City. Showed up one night at like 11 p.m. Morning skate, tested positive for COVID. So he was out. And then we didn't have a goalie. And there was a kid, and I don't remember his name, but he played D3 ACHA. He was a backup goalie. He hadn't played a game all year with them. But he was from Rapid City, and he was coming home for Christmas break from school. And so somehow Ryan Kanaswich, the coach of the Grizzlies, for you guys that don't know, he found this kid just on his way back from school. And he ended up playing for us that night, and we won like 2-1. But like
in overtime, right?
In overtime, yeah. And the goal they let in the goal he let in was from like center ice. It was like a dump in, and everyone was kind of like, "Oh no." But you talk about blocking shots. That was the name of the game. I'm sure everyone had like 64 bruises after that one, but we got it done. So
I remember that game. I remember all that stuff because Kanaswich was calling me and Tegan. He's like, I need one of you guys here right now. And I was on shift at the fire department. And Tegan was like, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to get called into an ECHL game out of the blue. So
yeah.
Good on Tegan for being that smart. But yeah, I can't even imagine how crazy that is. And to sell out the game I got put in, Evan, if you'll remember, we were killing a 5-on-3 power play too.
Oh yeah. I do remember. I was on the ice. Head spinning like, how can I pick up 3 people at once here? Something's got to give.
Yeah. So an amazing night. The Grizzlies, those were bad losses, and there's no way to sugarcoat that. But I talked to a lot of fans after, and I just want to emphasize to the fans, I want to make sure everybody understands what's going on here. Like I said, Kansas City has the same team minus 2 guys now, a goalie and one other guy that they traded. And that's pretty rare in the ECHL. And if you can have that, and that's why in history, those independent teams that they have some call-ups, but not as many call-ups, those are the teams that usually do pretty well. So if you have some of those teams that aren't being messed with as much, they're gonna do well. And the Grizzlies, like I said, they're like 10 players different than they were. And that's a lot when you only carry 23, 25 guys.
Yeah.
So
sorry not to interrupt you, but I actually was looking into that because I know that was like a common theme when I was playing. Just the turnover guys in that league is crazy. And I looked at KC's games played, and they had 12 guys that have over 20 games played this season, where the Grizz only had 7, and it got less and less if you like compared it side by side as you went down. But that's like, I'm sure you went through the same thing when you were playing, but like the year I was there, I think from opening night to like the last game in playoffs, we probably had like 7 of the same guys. So it's like the turnover is pretty nuts, and it's hard to build chemistry that way for sure.
But isn't that one of the things that brings, like, if I'm a unsigned guy and I'm looking for a place to play, and I'm like, hey, I'm looking at Utah's roster. First off, it's always moving, so there's a chance I can get in there. And second off, it's moving because they keep putting guys into the East or up into the A. Like, don't you want to go there for that because you have more of a chance of getting promoted?
It's double-edged because a lot of guys go up, a lot of guys go down too. And so, I mean, that's what's wild about the league. You never know. A team could be mediocre at best, and within 2 weeks, they get this influx of players, and all of a sudden they go on a 10-game win streak. When I was playing in Elmira, it happened with Florida, where week before playoffs, they got a bunch of guys down. They ended up winning the Kelly Cup. And
with
so
guys that were in the A all year, basically.
Yeah.
Wow, crazy.
So you never know. One of the teams I played for, I think throughout the year, we had like 70 roster players. So it's crazy.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that's like the Utah Outliers last year. We went through 57 rostered players with all the trades and stuff happening, up and down in the NAL. And so it's definitely in all the leagues that it happens. I think Kansas City's going to get theirs when the trades all come in January and February. And I think that, the Grizzlies always step it up. And, the season's not over yet. And so I have a lot of faith that the Grizzlies will pull it out. And, Kansas City's they're going to lose their players like all teams do, and their hotness will get pretty cold quick. So,
yeah, I mean, you figure that's what's going to happen. And I don't know, Seattle might have some magic juice up there. Who knows? All right, let's talk about the Utah Hockey Club and what was going on with them. And, I was telling people, I think there's a lot of momentum going on right now. I thought, Mason, you and I talked last week before their series here. And I just said, even though they dropped a couple, I really liked what I was seeing. And we talked about Stenlund's game, and he goes out, picks up a couple points over the weekend. What are you guys' thoughts on the last couple games? How do you think things are going, Mason? Start with you.
So much better. I mean, like we talked about the upside of this team, it's starting to show now, right? We're spending a lot less time in the penalty box is the biggest thing that we've been harping on. And the second thing we were harping on was shots. And I mean, last night against Philly, at the end of every period and the end of the game. They were leading shots. They were getting to the net. I mean, Valimaki's a defenseman, scored his first goal, a tip in front of the net. So yeah, I like the way they're playing. It's obviously working. So,
You know, you bring up Valimaki, and that's a kid that's under a lot of pressure right now. Juuso Valimaki, he's an offensive defenseman. That's kind of what he's known for. I've written a couple articles about it. I try to keep my articles as positive as possible. And it seemed like maybe they were giving up on him being offensive, like they were pairing him with more offensive-minded people and letting him maybe be the stay-at-home D. But here's a quick video from Juuso talking about the goal he scored. And I think it's important to understand what this kid's going through. Basically, what he's talking about is the fact that he, you know, it's better late than never, and it feels good to finally score. And I know we talked about this a bit with Schmaltz, like the pressure of what you did last year compared to what you need to do this year. And with everything being brand new and exciting here, Evan, as a defenseman, what's the pressure like to score? Do you know if you're supposed to score, or is it just like, all right, that guy's supposed to score and I'm just going to look for my opportunities every once in a while? Or how does that work for a defenseman?
Yeah, everyone kind of has their role, knows what they bring to the table. But when once again, you have a newer team, a younger team, everyone's still kind of figuring that stuff out. Like this is when these hiccups happen. And so, the fact that this stuff's happening now, and realistically, it's still early. That's when you want it to happen. They learn these lessons. He pots a couple here and there. Confidence starts to build. Your teammates, they believe in you, and then you just kind of start rolling. But I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where transitioning from level to level, team to team, you have to kind of sometimes relearn where your best assets are. And if you were scoring, a lot in the American League or junior or whatever, might not necessarily translate into the NHL. You got to kind of figure that out. And, it's a constantly evolving game. And that's what makes hockey for me so much fun, because like when I transitioned over to Europe, became a completely different set of, rules for me. And I became a different type of player because I was allowed to, and I had to kind of figure that out, how to be useful on that side of it. And I mean, it's obviously a different size and different scale there, but it's no different, in the NHL.
Was that something you figure out, or is that something a coach tells you, like, hey, this is what I want you to do? Or is it just a mix?
It's a mix. It's both. Usually when the coach comes to you, it's like, all right, you might be kind of on your last leg. Like, this is what we need you for. This is what we got you for. But once again, it's just motivation. Like, all right, at least if someone's having that conversation with you, they believe that you can do it. And you just got to put the pieces together and figure out a way to do it.
Mason, you ever go through something like that in your career where you're like, all right, now I got to kind of change how I play? Like, cause you were, what was your role in juniors compared to what it was like with the Utah Grizzlies?
Probably very, like, the transition was probably very, trying to think the best way to describe this, but I got a lot more opportunity with the Grizzlies. And so my role kind of got bigger and in a much better way for me. Just Ryan gave me a lot more opportunity, power play wise, penalty kill wise, just top six wise, all that stuff. So that was a good transition and a little bit surprise for me, I guess. But like Stoff was saying, like, your role changes so much and you kind of have to learn to adjust. But if, like, going back to Valimaki, I mean, he gets scratched a couple games, right? And I know we mentioned a couple weeks ago that when I played against him when he was in Tri-City, like, a super skilled guy. But you hear when guys make that step to AHL or to NHL, like Trevor Lewis is a good example of this, right? Like, he tears it up in junior, like, puts up a ton of points, and then makes his whole living being a glue penalty kill type guy. So, I mean, it's just being a professional and being some of the best in the world. Sometimes that's one of the best assets you can have, is just adaptation.
Yeah. Great point. Great point. Let's get to what Coach was having to say. Let's see. Just lost it. Oh, one of the videos went away. Anyway.
I'd like to add something too. Evan was talking about, being able to evolve as a player, and, it's a characteristic that young teams don't have. And that's what's really scary about the Utah Hockey Club is watching them learn so early in the season how to adapt to the injuries and to the player roster changes. And, and poor Schmaltz can't beat video evidence. But what's happening with the Utah Hockey Club right now is they're learning quicker than a lot of the other teams are. And you can go one of two ways when you start losing games. You can go in the toilet completely, or you can find a way to like pull some out. And I think that's what the Utah Hockey Club's doing right now. And I think that's why some of these teams, especially with Minnesota coming up, they're a good team. But when you've got a team like Utah that's figuring things out like this, with what they have, that can be a pretty deadly kind of a characteristic to go up against.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really great point, actually. Let's hear what Andre had to say.
PK, we scored a big goal in the power play. They generate under PK, and we did a good job against that. Our PK was really solid, so that's really good. Our goalie did a really good job. I like our game.
How did you feel? We talked a lot about the rush, against the rush, rather.
Yeah.
How'd you feel they fared today?
I think we're pretty good. I think I like the way we play, we defend, leading by one and starting the third, and we gave up 6 shots, I think, in the third or something like that. So I like the way we defend, and I like the way we play in the O-zone as well. We had good looks. We generate good offense.
What did you see out of the Hayton line tonight?
I think they start rolling, they start clicking. They possess the puck. They're dangerous every time they have the puck in the O-zone. Even on the rush, they start to generate some stuff on the rush. So they're doing pretty good.
To walk away with.
That's basically what I wanted to talk about is just the fact that things are starting to click for them. They're starting to realize, well, like Mason was saying, they're doing a better job of staying out of the penalty box, and they're doing a better job at killing those penalties when they get them. What do you guys take from this? Bill, we'll start with you this time. What did you take from what the coach is saying here?
I think he talks about that rush, and in the past when Utah's lost games in the third period, especially in the last 5 minutes, teams get that rush. You get that we're behind, and, they play a lot harder. And I think identifying that rush when it happens and adjusting to it, which is what Utah's done a lot better these last few games. They're not letting teams beat them in the last 5, 6, 7 minutes of the game. How many times have we been up and, as Utah Hockey Club fans are like, yes, we're doing amazing. And then we just, that's so hard to lose a game in those last final minutes of the game. And I think they're doing a better job at identifying those rushes, like you said, and playing defensively and smarter and closing out games better.
There's something weird that's been happening in the first 20 games, at least. The second period, we had like these meltdown moments. I don't know if that's a problem with youth, or just the uniqueness of this team, or what. But we'd get a penalty or we'd give up a goal, and then the wheels would just completely fall off the cart for the rest of for the next 5 minutes in that second period. But if you took that 5 minutes out of the second period, it's a completely different story where Utah dominated the beginning and at the end, but just not in that 5 minutes of the middle. You ever seen anything like that before, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely just a team learning how to be a successful team. I was at that San Jose game earlier this year where they lost in the third period, and obviously, the world's ending, this, that. But the way I take that is, once again, it's a new team that's learning that, and that's something that sticks with you, and you don't forget what those games feel like, and you don't want those to happen. Fast forward now a couple months later, they're entering the third period, 1-goal game, and they only lost 6 shots. That's a team that's learning how to deal with that and close those games out. And that's how you become dangerous. And, that's when you watch other teams in different situations in their makeup, like when, the Avalanche come to town, you see they know how to do that. They went through all these bumps and bruises and all that stuff. And that's Utah learning to be that type of team. And I think they can be doing it this quick with how much the turnover and just the craziness of the whole, environment of Utah having an NHL team to be able to kind of remedy these things this quickly. Fast forward to 2 months from now, what's it going to look like after they get that confidence? Like, okay, this happened. We learned how to do it. We can hold 1-goal leads. We can, sew up those 5 minutes, because that 5 minutes doesn't seem like much, but I mean, that's literally the difference of those top tier teams that make those long playoff runs that, every year in and out, it's like, well, they've got a chance.
Yeah, Mason, have you ever played on a team like that just had a roadblock where every once in a while something would happen during a game and you could feel like the rest of the team going like, oh, here we go again. And if so, how do you get out of that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, and something that we've kind of said is, I mean, for these guys, 82 games, that's a long time. I mean, there's no team ever that's going to go 82 good games, right? It's just the way it is. So at some point in time, you're going to run into those lulls. And it's just all about that's why it's so important you talk about, we kind of talked about we were joking about with the e-bug stuff about blocking shots, but something as simple as that, like blocking shot or let's go back to that Buffalo game. We're talking about the second period and how they've kind of struggled in the second period. Well, they get 3 goals in the second period. Kessering gets a Gordie Howe hat trick. I'm pretty sure he got it all in the second period. And you go back to whether that's a fight, whether that's a block shot, penalty kill, whatever, just little things inside of a game can transform into a successful rest of that game and beyond that, right? So
yeah, pretty impressive. So Utah Hockey Club has gone through some bumps and everything's looking great. Looks like we're kind of moving in the right direction. And then if you look at the next 3 games in the schedule, we've got first place overall with 40 points already, the Minnesota Wild. And everybody's been texting me asking me if Flower's going to play it. I'm pretty sure he's not.
I don't.
Gustafson, their starter, and Fleury played the other night. Bill, did you have anything to say to that?
I was, when you ask what's up with the Minnesota Wild, and I think the things they're doing well, they're playing both ends of the ice. You've got Gustafson, and he's just guy's thick. And when you have a goaltender like that, and you're scoring we've got the leading scorer in the NHL, and it's like everything in between just kind of fits together. It's kind of like Oreo cookie. You got the cream in the middle, and everything's just good, and it's wholesome. And so but I think when you come up against a team like that, and you've got a look what we did to Vegas. Vegas was on all thrusters when we faced them, and so a team like the Utah Hockey Club is just. You just never know what's going to happen, so you never know which team's going to show up. And I think Minnesota's probably preparing for that. And so, but in the end, when you got Gustafson, and let's say you pull him and you put in Marc-Andre Fleury, he's as a team, you're like, gosh, you can't get a break, so.
Yeah, they went from the hottest goalie right now to one of the best goalies of all time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Minnesota's looking good that way. As long as they can stay healthy, I think they're going to have a great season, but I think it's going to be a good game against the Hockey Club. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. After that is Colorado. So that's tough. And then San Jose, who all of a sudden is on fire and just putting up goals in bunches. So good tests this week for the Utah Hockey Club. I think I'm going to go out on a limb here. And out of the 3 games coming up this week, I'm going to say they go 2-1.
I would agree with that.
Anyone else?
I like that pick. I do. They seem to from what I've seen is that when they play against the better teams, they play a lot better, right? It's when they play against a lower ranked team in the league, sometimes there's a little bit of mental slip up I see, but when they play against the good teams, they really dial it in. So I think the Minnesota game and the Colorado game, that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm pretty excited about them. And then after this week, I think we need to get together. I have an interview coming up this week. I think I'm gonna with one of the players on the team, obviously, because that's really what the podcast is all about. Is really getting into those deep questions, because I'm so deep. Or it could just be me talking equipment with Vamelka, something like that. But anyway, and after that, let's get together next week. What do you say? We get the rest of us together and break down some more hockey games, and I'll try to schedule this when Tegan's here so we can run all the video. And that way, I didn't realize in the last 8 years, we've barely showed any video because the majority of my downloads are downloads for people to listen to, but now more people want video. So we're going to make this both visual and audio for everybody. So we're going to try and make it better, and we're just going to keep growing and getting better every week as we can. And it helps me to have you guys talk about it. You guys all are experts. And I think I really enjoy listening to what you guys have to say. It helps me figure out things more, and it gives me a lot to write about because I'm not a writer, and all of a sudden I have to write. So I just steal all your guys' ideas and put them into words that make it sound like I thought of it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
That's for me.
I need to keep having you guys on the show so we can do that. You guys make me look smarter. All right, Mason, you got anything? Tell us a little bit about your company on the side. What do you got going on? Tell us about your cleaning company.
It's called Endless Organized Solutions. We're kind of like a luxury organizing to any residential or commercial need. We've done some warehouse work to kind of dial in companies' inventory, prevent them from overbuying material, prevent them from having any lost material kind of thing. And then residential wise, that one's pretty fun. That's kind of up to the homeowner to customize how they want their pantry, closet, kitchen, whatever to look. And we go in there and transform it and make their lives easier in the end. So it's been pretty fun.
What's the name of it?
Endless Organized Solutions. And we're on Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. No website yet, but
oh, come on.
We'll get there.
Find Mason Mannek online. Evan, what do you got?
Tech sales. Since I stopped playing, got set up with a company that works with ex-athletes and veterans to help them transition into outside of kind of what's been their identity their whole life, and using those skills to transfer into sales. So been doing that for about a year now. Like it. Anyone listening, veteran or an ex-athlete that's looking to maybe try something new, the Shift Group it's free training to you. They'll help place you in a job. So it's a win-win setup for anyone looking for something new with that type of background.
How do they get a hold of you?
Evan Stoflet at gmail.com. Give me a call, 801-953-8272. Love to help someone figure out their next step.
I can't believe you just gave your number out over this.
Interesting. It's exciting.
Drunk, here it comes.
Bill, tell us about the Outliers. What's going on, man?
We just came off of a pretty interesting season with the Idaho Falls Spud Kings. That's not the weekend. We're struggling just like the Utah Hockey Club was with trying to figure out how to handle that rush, taking leads into the third period and not holding on to them. So we'll get there. Great team. We got a really big weekend coming up in 2 weekends with our holiday Christmas game. So looking for do some stuff with the Utah Food Bank, of course. And it's an exciting time of year for us to help make a difference. And, junior hockey is a lot of fun. And there's, this NCDC program we have right now is, gosh, in the West, it's the talk of hockey right now. The way we're growing, and teams are looking at coming from the NAL to join the NCDC, and so it's been a lot of fun watching it all evolve, and especially the new rinks going up, the 5,000 seat facility up in Idaho Falls, and then our rink getting finished in Park City this year too, which it's the first privately owned rink in Utah, which is exciting for the Outliers to be able to have that. So. Lots of good things happen with the Outliers with Paul Taylor and Kevin McCloskey, and especially with the youth program and the stuff they're doing here in the Valley with Ryan Smith to help kind of boost that up. And I'm excited. I'm kind of in the middle of it. I get the back seat, in the car, kind of ride along. So, but being a part of it's such an honor, especially to be able to do stuff like this. So.
That's amazing. Well, we're gonna have to talk more about all that. We'll definitely cover some Outliers stuff. And guys, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to help me break down some hockey, and looking forward to doing it again next week.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Let's do it.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Utah Puck Report. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Rate us, leave us feedback, let us know what you want us to do better. Big thanks to our sponsors, Only Crowns. Love having a dentist sponsor for the hockey podcast. Check them out at onlycrowns.com. Thanks to KSL Sports, the Utah Hockey Club, Madison Miller, and Tegan Stevens for producing. And thanks to the American Hitmen for that awesome intro song. We'll see you next week.